some things specific to coding in Ascribe Coder. What I'm going to do is start out with a small PowerPoint and then actually work through a demonstration of how to apply codes in Ascribe Coder.
Laura, can you make Antoine a presenter?
I already
an organizer.
Did. It's
an organizer.
Already did.
Okay. All right, thank you. Sorry.
He's already recording. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So just so you know, today we will mainly be focusing on the coding aspect of Ascribe Coder. I will not be going into a lot on the actual code book. I don't know what's going on here. Why I'm getting feedback for some reason. There we go. Okay. As we go through this, everybody will be muted except for Julie Hartman. Julie is actually going to be looking at the chats and presenting me with any questions that might come up. So since you're muted, since we have so many people on, if you have any questions, please submit them using your GoToMeeting dashboard over on the right side of your screen and type them in the chat area, and we'll answer any of those questions that come up. Okay. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, the other thing is I am recording these, so they will be made available after the training session, so that we can share them with our colleagues or have them as a reference to go to after the fact. So I'm starting out with a small PowerPoint just so that we're all on the same page with what Ascribe Coder is. Ascribe Coder is actually the modernized rewrite of review responses, the single response coder interface, and edit the code book. It was originally released on September 20th of 2013. It is currently available on our live server, so you can access Ascribe Coder today. I get emails about once a week asking me if I can give them access to Ascribe Coder. It is actually out there. And you'll see how we reach it today. And I do encourage you to use it today for coding. As I said, it merges the functionality of 4 pages: review responses, single response coder interface, and edit the code book. And then, of course, codebook editor preview, which has already been removed from production. The Ascribe Coder tool was developed from your feedback. Our developers used our support maintain user wish list and also user group feedback. We've been working on this for about 2 years, even in prototype stage, presenting it to our users group and getting their feedback. If you'd like to join our users group, it meets on Wednesday morning, the second Wednesday of the month at 11 a.m. Eastern, and you can email myself, support, or Julie to get involved in that. Ascribe Coder was rewritten very specifically to be supported in multiple browsers. So you'll see that today I'm actually using Chrome as my browser. You can use Internet Explorer, Firefox, or Safari on a Mac. Just a little bit more about Ascribe Coder. It was released originally in September, as you know, but we've released quite a few patches due to user feedback. A lot of it due to our users group feedback and due to feedback from our training sessions on Ascribe Coder. And this is just a list of some of the things that we've done to further update Ascribe Coder as we move forward. We've, in version 7.5, 2 things to point out was just some of the improved find functionalities and some drag-drop functionality that we'll be talking about today. In our latest patches, we've put in some new codebook features, so I'll be talking about those tomorrow. I did want to point out, because one of the things that I'm asked about just about every time I do this is spell check. And spell check for Ascribe Coder is tentatively slated for March of 2014 in our V7.6 release. And then our version 8 release is tentatively scheduled for June 2014. And this is important to us because that's when we intend to remove review responses and to remove the single response coder interface and to remove edit the code book. Okay, and also I meant to move this down a little bit. We are also rewriting Phrase Analyzer, but I do not believe it's scheduled for version 8. All right, so it's very important that you get to know Ascribe Coder and use Ascribe Coder and provide us feedback on it, because it will be our main coding tool after June of 2014. All right, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pop over to Ascribe Coder. Where did my Ascribe Coder go? One second. Probably should do this. I apologize. I just had this open. Okay. Sorry about that. My Chrome closed without any. There we go. Thanks for your patience while I got logged in. Here we go. So now directly to the demonstration. I'm going to navigate over to Supervisor Studies. I'm going to right-click on my study and choose Questions. And I'm going to be coding my dislikes today, which is Q8. I'm going to right-click on it. I'm going to choose Ascribe Coder. All right, and as I said, I'm mostly going to be focused on coding today, on the ways that we code things in Ascribe Coder. And to start out, though, I will give you a little overview of the screen. You'll notice that the right side of the screen holds my code book, my netted code book, and I have a toolbar above it. Again, I'll be talking about this tomorrow in our webinar scheduled for tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. The left side of the screen is where we'll return our responses. The toolbar at the top of the left side of the screen, the first option is our navigation icon. If you click on that, that allows us to navigate to other parts of Ascribe. Okay? We have a number of tools in our response pane toolbar. Today we'll be focusing a little bit on the search tools, a little bit on our settings tool, and we might even get into some filters and sorting. I will focus mainly on coding in multiple response mode today. Coding in single response mode, just clicking on this tab, is pretty much the same as a single response coder interface, but I might be scheduling a session for that later on, or we can answer individual questions or do individual sessions on that. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, at the bottom of our screen, we have our question information. So if I want to keep my question showing on the screen, what I can do is move this resizer bar, and I see my question information at the bottom of my screen. If I want to change the properties of my question, I have access to my question properties right here. Okay. Most of the time while I'm working, I might go ahead and minimize the question area or the question pane by clicking on the toggle button. Okay, so that's the general layout of the screen. I'm going to go ahead and get started and talk about search. So when we first navigate into Ascribe Coder, what we see is we see a text box. The responses containing this text box. This is our search box. By default, this is just a straight search. If we want to use regular expressions, as we do today in review responses, we'd want to toggle on this regular expression option. And I usually toggle that on first thing. The second field that we have here is our show only field. Again, it defaults the first time we log in to being blank, which means there are no restrictions. Show me both coded and uncoded responses. If we want only our uncoded responses, we'll choose uncoded responses. If I want my coded responses, then I'll choose show only responses with any code applied, or uncoded or coded responses. I'm not going into the rest of those today, the rest of the options. But we will talk about those more when I talk about this whole response pane as a whole in a future. I think the next one is the one on February 13th on a Thursday. I'm holding a session on that at 9:30 and 3:30. Okay, and I'm going to be doing a new search. Now go ahead and hit OK or hit Go, and this is my search. All right. So when we first navigate into Ascribe Coder, our settings are set to just show us our verbatim. Doesn't show us our respondent ID, doesn't show us our question IDs or our study IDs. If I wanted to show my respondent ID, what I would do is click on Response Settings and choose Respondent ID. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and go about coding without the respondent ID showing. I just wanted to make sure that I showed that that was available. All right. So I've returned 326 responses out of 348. If I hover over my little filtered, the word filtered here in bright red, it tells me that I'm showing my uncoded responses. I've currently got these sorted by respondent ID, so it's showing me my responses by respondent ID. Okay? So I know that these 326 responses is 93% of my responses, but 18% of my respondents in the study. All right? When I select responses, what you'll notice is that this first number here, it tells me that I've got 3 out of 326 responses selected. So let's talk a little bit now about how we actually apply codes to these responses. First off, before I get there though, I want to go over to my Response Settings Applied Codes tab. I've made a few changes here. I usually turn on code duplicates so that if I code this nothing, and this nothing, and this nothing, and all the duplicates that say just that word, N-O-T-H-I-N-G, will be coded. So all my duplicates will be coded. I usually turn that on. I know you guys have scenarios where you wouldn't turn that on, but just so you know today, I do have that turned on. I've also turned off the prompt for confirmation when removing a single code, and I've turned on my Remove Code button. Okay? I will explain all those as we go forward. All right, so let's talk about coding. So if I have a response that I want to code, I can always drag a code to the response. Okay? So I just drag all other mentions to the response. It does not state how it feels on your hair. Okay? I can also code responses by selecting multiple responses. So I've selected 3 responses, 3 out of 326, and clicking on the code that I want to apply. I'll go ahead and apply the nothing code there. So notice that it tells me I coded 3 responses. Okay? I can code a response by using the hyperlink, the regular expression hyperlink. Okay? So for those of us, and let me explain that. This morning I was asked, what does that mean? Many of us know that when we create a code, we have this option to put in a regular expression. That's a little bit of a crazy regular expression. Let me go back to my price regular expression so people can kind of get the gist here. So in my expensive price code, I've got a regular expression that tells me I want to pick up price, expensive, or cost. These little bars in between mean or. So anytime the Ascribe coder sees PRIC or EXPNSIV or COST, it's going to suggest my expensive price code. Let me just do a quick search and show you. If I search for the word price, notice that everywhere the word price comes up, it is suggesting my expensive price code. I know that expensive price is being suggested because that's the text that's in the hover help. When I hover over it, it's telling me which code has been suggested. Okay? So I can click this, and it automatically applies the suggested code. All right? Okay, so that's regular expression coding. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about, and let me just go ahead and bring up, so I just hit search again. When I hit search again, it applies my last search without me actually having to open it and hit go. So since I last searched for uncoded responses with the word price, and again, I can see kind of a shortcut to that here in my stats bar, it's telling me that I want to bring up responses that match the regular expression for price and show only the uncoded responses. Okay, so hitting search again will automatically apply that. Now I can go ahead and select all and apply my price code. I don't have to use the regular expression link, the hyperlink. Okay, so I selected all those and applied the price code. Now, some of these responses, like for instance this one, says price and it might make your hair look dirty. So let me just go up here and I'd probably add that as a code over here, but for now I'm going to just put it in my all other appearance to hair mentions. So I can drag that code and drop it. And note that when I drag and drop, it only applies that code to that response. It's a one-off thing. When you drag a code, you can only code one response with it. That's very different from review responses. In review responses, we selected responses and then dragged the code over, and that code would apply to every response we had selected. Okay? The idea today in this multiple response, in the code multiple response mode, is that we select our responses and then we just get to click on the code to apply it. All right? So if I click on another code, let me click on sticky on here. Notice that it applied to every one of these that I had selected. All right? If I want to remove those, I can right-click and say Remove Last Codes Applied. It'll tell me everywhere it's going to remove those codes, hit OK, and away they go. Okay? All right. So let me go ahead and do another search, and then we'll talk some more about this. Well, actually, let's go down here and see here. All right. Some of these others, well, maybe they're, oh, here we go. But I would most likely buy a small bottle because of what I have to pay for it. Maybe I would put that. Maybe I would track that another. I don't know. But again, drag and drop is a one-at-a-time thing. Okay? Very different than what we're used to. Go ahead and do another search for my uncoded responses. All right. So we know we can code by dragging and dropping one at a time. We know that we can select multiples and apply a code by clicking on the code. We can also hyperlink code. Let's talk a little bit about the code duplicates. If I code this nothing, or this response here, if I just click on it to accept the hyperlink, notice that up here in my stats bar, it tells me that I last coded one response because I manually coded this response. But I also coded 42 duplicates. So all in all, I coded 43 responses by clicking on that nothing code. So, or clicking on that nothing response. When I click this one, last coded one, and there were 4 duplicates. All right. If I hit my search again, it's going to remove my coded responses, and now I'm back to just seeing my uncoded responses here. Okay? All right. So just to review, drag and drop one at a time. And this is where I'm not going to be coding to what it says anymore. Select multiples, click to apply, click to apply, click to apply. Okay? And it applies to everything that's selected. I can just search again to bring up my uncoded. I could also right-click and deselect these guys. If for some reason I needed them to stay up on my screen, I could right-click and deselect them if I wanted to. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my uncoded again. All right. And we were pretty clear on expression coding. Click on the link. It applies the code. Deleting codes. So this time, let me go ahead and do a search for my coded responses. my responses with any code applied. Okay, so now note that up here at the top, it tells me that I'm showing 97 responses, of which none are selected. And in those 97 responses, there have been 115 codes applied. Okay, so let's say I need to get rid of some of those codes that have been applied. I can click on the garbage can, and it deletes the code. I can drag the code over to the code book, and it deletes the code. Or I can select multiple codes and right-click and say, remove this code and all selected codes. It'll show me how many are going to be removed. And it removes the applied codes. Okay, so that's how we remove codes. Now what if I want to swap? Let's say in a few of these I want to swap not controls eliminate static. All right. I select the codes that I would like to swap, and maybe this would just be not make hair manageable. I drag the code that I would like to replace the selected codes with and drop it on one of those codes, and it will swap them out. Now notice that this guy didn't get swapped out because not make hair manageable was already there. Okay, sort of the same way today that when we swap and review responses, if we try to swap when that code, the code that we're swapping, replacing the code with is already applied, it doesn't replace it, still works just the same. Another thing about swapping, you don't have to select the same code. Okay, so notice now that I've got not make hair manageable, not control eliminate when they're static, not for my hair type, and not make hair manageable, all selected. And I'm going to replace them all with other residue mentions. Boom. It's going to tell me that there's 4 selected. I'm going to be replacing 4. There we go. Those are now swapped. All right. So that's swapping codes and deleting codes. A couple of other things to mention. We can code by dragging a code from one response to another. So I just applied expensive price there. This might be more noticeable. Let me just quickly sort by verbatim length and then by verbatim. Once we sort, we have to do another search to bring up them up. And you know what? Go. All right. So I'm bringing up my coded and uncoded now. I drag this nothing up here, and then it applies it to the none. All right. So again, that's another way that we can code in this window. I'm going to go ahead and delete these guys. There we go. All right. So one other or two other things to tell you about applying codes. I'm going to go back over here to my response settings, and I want to talk about targeted coding. Okay, so we're clear on how we code. You know, we can select responses and click on the code text to apply codes. But what if we want to select our codes and then click on the response? So we can do targeted coding. When we turn on this Apply Selected Codes button, it adds a target to the front of each response. Okay, so each response now has a little target in front of it. And I can now say, okay, I'm going to select my nothing code. And notice I'm selecting my nothing code by clicking to the left or right of it. This little double arrow allows me to select the nothing code. If I click on the nothing code, it's not going to, it doesn't, sorry, if I click on the nothing code, it doesn't actually select it. I have to select it with the double arrows. All right? Now nothing is kind of set as a shortcut. And I hit the targets, and it applies the nothing code. All right? So yeah, that's all, but for that, that's easy enough to do, you know, these little one-word things. I believe that this might be more helpful in places where we might have multiple codes to apply. So we can select all the codes we want to apply to a response, hit the target, and then move on to the next one. Select the codes that we want to apply, hit the target, and move on to the next one. Okay? Again, just to explain, even with the target up, we can do, well, boom, clicked on one of those. We can do the whole select a response and click on a code to apply it. Okay? So when I select responses and click on codes, they apply to my selected responses. When I select codes and I'm in target coding mode and click on the target, then those selected codes will apply to the responses whose target I hit. Okay? They have nothing to do. They don't interact with each other. They're their own coding methods. All right. Okay. So we've been talking about searching for responses, just using the search up here. We can also search for responses by clicking on a code and then right-clicking and hitting Search Any, and it'll bring up the responses that said not control. So in this case, I'm bringing up the responses that said not control, eliminate frizziness. All right? So if I want those responses that said both not control, eliminate frizziness, and sticky, there we go. If I want the responses that said both of these, then I would search all. And in this case, there's just one. If I want the responses that said either of these, then I search any. Okay? I wanted to make sure I went over that. That was a question this morning. All right. One more thing about coding. Let me go ahead and bring up all of my responses again. Okay. We have one other tool, and this tool is called Drag Responses to Copy Coding. And this tool would be helpful if you've got a lot of codes you need to apply, and that you've got two responses that are similar. So I can drag this response to this response, and it says, do I want to copy the coding? I say OK, and it copies my coding. So again, sometimes when you've got larger responses, you've got 20 codes applied, and they're saying the same things, it might be easier just to copy the coding and then delete anything you don't want or clean it up or whatever. Again, that is the drag responses to copy coding option. All right. I'm going to turn off my targeted coding. This morning I was also asked, how the different things that we can show for our verbatims. So I can show my study ID, I can show my question ID, I can show my respondent ID. The next question, of course, was, can you change the appearance? You can. Your responses, you can change them to regular font, bold font. You can change the size, if you want them in 10. If you can have super eyesight, change it to 8. But the standard, the default, is Calibri 12 in bold for your responses. You can also change the font of your applied codes. And you'll often find me with my applied codes in bold and my responses in regular font. But for today, I'll go ahead and change it back. All right. I'm going to take the study ID off of there, but I'm going to leave the question ID. And talk a little bit more about, and for this, I'm going to actually go out and come into my shared code book here, my Q11 series, and bring up my responses. Okay. Also, when we search, something that's kind of different that we've got kind of brand new is this single respondent search. And what the single respondent search does is that it will bring up, when you've got shared code books, in this case, I've got 5 questions that share a code book. I can see that there, or I can bring it up here, right? So I'm coding across shared code books now. But I have this option to bring up to search at a single respondent level, so that I'm seeing Q11, Q11 underbar 1, and Q11 underbar 2, and this is respondent 10,049's answer to those questions. And this will take me to the next one, and this will take me to the next one. Wanted to make sure I went over that here, so that that allows me to code this respondent across shared code books all at once. Okay? So make sure I brought that up. Let me change this back to our new search and hit go and talk a little bit about my right-click menu here. Go ahead and code these guys. I tell you, regular expressions make it pretty easy to code brands. All right, so one of the things that I have, a new tool, I do have select all, but I also have select all same. So for those of us that can't turn on code dupes, we could still use select all same on certain responses. So it selected all my nones. I could highlight them and or click the code and apply them. So select all same. Of course, we've got deselect all same kind of thing. One of the things that I wanted to point out is if I've got a couple responses selected down here, I've got 3 responses selected, and I'm up here at the top, and I'm going, okay, it says I've got 3 selected. What do I have selected? I can right-click on a response and go to the next selected. Okay? So the right-click menu, when I right-click on a response, it pertains to my responses. When I right-click on a code, let me apply a code here. When I right-click on a code, it applies to my codes. All right? And just wanted to make sure that I explained how that worked. And I think that's pretty much everything that I had slated to cover today. So now, Julie, were there any questions that came up at all?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. So guys, if there are any questions, please feel free. You can raise your hand, and I can either unmute you or you can submit it via chat. Antoine or Julie, was there anything else? Antoine, I'll unmute you. There we go. Is there anything else that we went over this morning that we maybe should go over today, this afternoon?
Yeah, I think you've covered it, Laura. That,
yeah.
Like you say, if there's any questions, okay. Ranga says that I find the question shared does not stick.
Okay. For the questions to shared to stick, there's a setting. It's in the response settings on the responses tab that says when starting, include questions from current studies sharing the code book. So if you can say, you know what, bring up the opens and the other specifies that share questions with the, that share a code book with the question that I'm navigating through. And then it should open those up. It will not stick across studies, okay? And also it's an all or nothing. So for instance, if I were to say, you know what, I don't want to code this one or this one from a shared code book, okay? So I'm saying I only want to code Q11 and then Q11 underbar 1, 3, 5, and 6. All right? I'll do my search again so that that sticks. Or actually, I should do my search. Yeah, so that sticks. And now what you'll find, I'll go ahead and code something. Code this Dixie. Coded 406 responses just now by clicking on that Dixie. If I go out and I come back in, because I've got that setting on, it will automatically bring them all back over. Okay? And that is how it's intended to work. It's an all or nothing. If I turn off that setting, so if I turn this off, and navigate out and come back in. Ascribe coder. Here we go. You'll notice that it only brings in that one question. So that's how it's intended to work today. And Ranga, I hope that answered your question. Anything else?
Okay, we do have a question.
Okay.
Using the applied selected codes button.
Okay.
Does the ability exist to apply codes in the order they've been selected, or do they get added in the order of code value?
Okay, let's take a look at that. I don't know that right offhand. Let me bring up my uncoded responses and we'll take a look. So what we want to do, and so is this with the targeted coding, Julie? Yes?
Yes.
And okay. So let's say I want to apply 406, then 401, then 414. Which order will it apply in? One thing that might help is if I were showing my output code ID. It's putting them in respondent ID, or sorry, in sort order, the order that they're in the code book. So it's applying code book order. So that might be a request. I will. We can add that as maybe something to discuss in our users group to see if that's what everybody would like. Is, hey, do you want it to apply in the order that we select? I'm not even sure that's something that's doable, but we can always ask. And we do a lot of that, a lot of asking. So we can check into that. All right, does that answer that, Julie?
Yes.
Okay.
We got another question. If I wanted to check all responses applied to one specific code, how do I pull up the responses of a specific code?
Okay. So if I want to pull up all the responses to expensive price, what I do is I first select expensive price. And remember, I select it by clicking to the outside with the double arrows. If I click on it, it doesn't select it, but it would apply it to anything I have over here selected. But anyway, I select that code, right-click, and search any. And it brings up all the responses that have expensive price applied to it. Is that what we're looking for?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the other thing is, you know, if you want to find those responses that had expensive price and another code applied to it, let's just say, here, we'll just dummy this up a little bit here. Okay. So let's say that I want to bring up the responses that had expensive price and all other price economy mentions applied. What I could do is right-click and hit Search All. And it brings up just those responses that have both expensive price and all other price value. Search Any would bring up those responses that had either expensive price value or all other price value economy mentions applied. And that's, you can do that for however many you want. If you need to see all of the responses that were applied here, then you just say Search Any. And now we've got everybody who's had not control eliminate frizziness, not control eliminate static, and not make hair manageable. Okay. Anything else?
Okay, hold on just a minute. How do I pull up those?
Okay, so.
Okay, yeah, change the order of codes.
Okay.
Apply codes.
Yeah. So since this is applying code, so when we do targeted coding, it applies the codes in code book order, right? What if I want to change the order of an applied code? So what I can do is I can say move up, and it'll move it up. Or I can say move down, and it'll move it down. Okay? So move up, moves it up. So that's again just another, that allows us to, for instance, sometimes I know we have to have the first mention first, and we might inadvertently apply it second, so we can just move that guy up to where he needs to go. Okay? All right. Anything else?
Okay, any other questions?
It's afternoon.
Yeah.
People aren't as rambunctious as this morning. All right. Well, here's the other thing, guys. We're going to be continuing to do these. Again, we do have sessions scheduled on our homepage. You'll see them. Of course, you know they're there because you registered for this one. Tomorrow is Codebook Basics. Next week, we've got Notes, Translation, and Transcription in the Response Toolbar. The following week, the Codebook Toolbar and Regular Expressions. And then dual code books, and then just the final kind of overview Q&A. I shouldn't say final because I have an idea we're going to be scheduling more of these as we move forward. Because again, review responses, the single response coder interface, which is, coder, code this question, and edit the code book are all slated to be removed in June of 2014. All right, so what I've asked everybody to do is if you find yourself using review responses or the single response coder interface, let us know why, and sometimes it's just because you haven't had time, for the training or to learn the new system, but if there's really productivity reasons, please let us know, and we'll look into it. This is still a work in progress. Okay, so
there's a couple last-minute questions. Laura, do you have time?
Okay, of course I do. Yeah, I've got a whole. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. How does this affect multiple coders working on the same job, the same question?
Okay, from what I understand, it works pretty much similar to the way it works in review responses today, where you'll try to apply a code and it won't show up if another person has already applied that code. Okay? So in review responses, if Julie and I are both coding, and Julie's coding Respondent 101 and applying the code red, and it's up on her screen, and then on my screen I have Respondent 101 and try to apply the code red, if Julie applied it first, it's going to look like it's being rejected on my screen. And I have an idea that it works that same way. Is that right, Julie? Kind of similar to that? Okay, cool. And then the other thing is, when we talk about editing code books, I'll get into this a little more tomorrow, but if somebody edits the code book while you're trying to code, whatever action you're trying to take will be stopped, and you'll be given a message that says the code book has changed or the code book has been modified by. So if I were in coding and I'm trying to apply a code and Julie has just changed the code book, that code that I'm trying to apply will just, nope, won't work. Instead, I'll get a message that says Julie Hartman has modified the code book, and my code book will refresh. So that's one of the things that account managers, so at the account level, you can turn those warnings off if they interrupt your coding and you have times when multiple people need to code together, or you can leave them on so that they're there. All right? If I code brand, oh, go ahead, Julie.
Oh, yeah. Well, if I code the brands, can I put them in alphabetic order?
Yes, and that's on sorting, and you can sort by verbatim, and it will put them in alphabetical order. Search, go. So now my brand is in alpha order, my uncoded here. All right. Cool. I think we're out of time, but thank you all for attending today. Again, apologize for the little mix-up. And I hope that you'll join us in other meetings. If you do need to schedule a one-on-one training session, just let us know. And Julie, Antoine, or myself can schedule those sessions. Anything we can do to help you get your team up and going by June, we'll be here to help. All right. Thanks, everyone.